Disclaimer. Unapologetically Gangster, the Don Kawand story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island. Story 43. The first time I landed on Rikers Island, it was for a petty crime. At first, I couldn't figure out how dudes got it on with all the correction officers always hanging around, but learned quickly that true gangsters cared very little about authority when coming for your ass. I was on my own after being placed on the south side of Two Dome, which they eventually changed to Mod 2. It was an open area, relatively clean and brightly lit, and had more than 50 beds. There was a small area called the day room, where there was a TV, couple of tables, and some chairs. But I stayed to myself on my bed until chow time. Everything was going smooth as I checked out every move being made by everyone. Most of the inmates had on do-rags and ugly faces, but well built. And it appeared as if everyone just hit the gym all day long. Everyone was chiseled as if they were professional bodybuilders. After about 20 minutes, they called us for chow and lined us up outside of the dome before marching us to the mess hall. Once in the mess hall, we lined up along the left side of the wall, got our food trays, and took a seat at a picnic-style table. Now, I didn't notice anybody familiar from the streets, but while sitting and eating at a table close to where the inmates are coming in and lining up, my eyes are on everyone coming in. I'm looking for a familiar face from either Marlboro or Coney Island. Instead, after a few minutes, in walks my cousin, C, aka Caesar, from Bed-Stuy. His moms and my granny were sisters. He's a little older than me, so he must have been about 18 or 19 at this time when I first laid eyes on him entering the mess hall. We spent the years seeing each other at family functions like Easter and Thanksgiving. The rest of my cousins were much younger than I, and I only seen them as well on special occasions. But anyway, my eyebrows raised as he entered the mess hall, sporting his hair in a 360 waves hairstyle and a pair of black and gold gazelles, some hot designer glasses at the time. He was also swollen around the arms like most inmates. Cuzzo lived on Patchen Avenue in Bed-Stuy, and this was his second time on Rikers Island. The first time he was on Rikers Island for a body and attempted murder after trying to rob some kid around his way. This was his second stint on Rikers Island, and I believe he was on the island for shooting at some cats at a White Castles in Brooklyn. It was crazy because the last time I seen him was on a visit in Rikers Island months earlier, during his first stint in the notorious prison. My Uncle Harold put some change on his books during the visit as I waited for the opportunity to slide him a couple of balloons filled with weed as he requested. So you gotta understand, my cousin was walking into the mess hall with nothing but confidence. Seeing a familiar face brought some relief, but right behind him was a cat from CI, someone who I knew very well. They were the first two from their house to enter the mess hall. What I didn't know then, but found out later, is that the first two in line of any house are usually the ones that run the joint. They were both into their conversation, laughing and joking with one another on the line before they spotted me. My cousin spotted me first as our eyes locked on one another. He stopped in his tracks, got real quiet, put his hands on his hips, and just stared at me with this crazy looking smile. Then my homie from CI, Buddha, aka Buddha Bless, noticed me. Buddha was on Rikers Island for a robbery and a homicide. Buddha, like my cousin, was also about 18 or 19 during this time. We had grown close with one another right before he went to prison. I knew he was on Rikers Island, but didn't expect to see him. And for a brief moment, I wondered if he even remembered me from the streets. But Buddha was the first to speak after laying eyes on me.
Oh shit, this my little man Kawand. What you doing here?
he asked, but it was obvious that I got caught being unruly on the streets.
Yo, you know Shorty? Where you know her from?
My cousin asked Buddha, who still didn't know that he was standing next to my family.
Yo, that's my little man from the streets. He was with me when I ran up on my Cody.
Buddha briefly explained as inmates carefully brushed past them to get their food trays. Buddha was related to my man Larry from the other side of the projects, a kid I hung out with when Rel lived in the PJs. We met while he was laying low from the homicide D's in Marlboro at Larry's crib. Buddha was on the run. That's how we met and became cool after a few blunt sessions inside of Larry's bedroom. But it would be a cold night in CI that we gained each other's respect. We got down and dirty with someone he once considered a partner in crime. It was a situation that I'd never forget. This is the end of Story 43, the Don Kawand story. Unapologetically Gangster, the Don Kawand story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island. Story 44. One late night, I was having a blunt session at my boy Larry's crib. This was right before my boy Rel moved out of Marlboro. I was still a young 14, maybe 15 at the time. While we was doing what we do, Buddha came into the room and asked us to ride with him out to CI. His two partners in crime caught a lick, and since neither one of them reached out to him to pay homage, he wanted to make them victims. This was also the first time I ran into someone's crib on some real gangster shit, and the only one I planned to discuss. But anyway, back to my man from CI. Buddha was about that business from the war stories he told during our smoking sessions at Larry's crib. But this night, he would prove it. Buddha kept one of them things on him. A 38 special to be exact, was always comfortably tucked in his waistline. This night I remember him having the flu and being sick as a dog, but wanted to ride out to Coney Island anyway. As we were leaving Larry's spot, we run into Unique in the hallway, Larry's older brother from Red Hook, and a bona fide fool. Unique had no problems putting hands on anyone. I hung out with him a few times in Red Hook, and just like Marlboro, Red Hook is isolated and a breeding ground for young knuckleheads. The boys in Red Hook had gotten me for a ratchet later in life. After robbing and popping some shots at them boys, I had to toss the joint in order to clear out with my life and freedom. But I'm not getting into the details of that night. Just know I ran through Red Hook as well as a young teenager. But anyway, back to this night and the ride to Coney Island. Everyone was silent during the 5-minute trip to West 23rd Street. Buddha had a key to the grungy looking building that was located on West 23rd Street between Surf Avenue and the boardwalk. The building appeared as if no one lived in it. Buddha is the only one strapped at the time. Therefore, after creeping through a dark and narrow hallway to get to the apartment door, he went in first. I must have been about 15 when I made the decision to follow him into the unknown. He was an angry, strapped teenager moving quickly through a door with menacing intent. The crib turned out to be a small kitchenette apartment with just a bed and a small kitchen set. One of his partners in crime was laying in a small twin bed, sleeping. Buddha shook him one time, took a step back, and then fired a shot directly into his direction. My ears started ringing because the shot echoed inside the small area. I thought the boy was hit when Buddha yelled,
"Yo, get the fuck up! Get the fuck up!"
He then snatched his homie out of the bed and put the barrel in the boy's mouth. Larry, Unique, and I were ducking and hiding behind one another as he spun the boy around with the barrel poking out the side of his jaw. It was crazy. Within a split second, visions of a bullet going through this dude's mouth and hitting one of us flashed in my mind, only because we were in such a confined area. And my homie was in blackout mode. You could see it in his eyes while he was spinning old boy around in a circle, screaming and cursing at him. and everyone was relieved when he finally turned the boy loose. I believe Larry and Unique had the same vision that I had, but Buddha turned him loose and demanded he handed over everything he had. His boy caught a bad one that night before Unique handcuffed him to the refrigerator door. Buddha was calling the shots. Therefore, he instructed Unique and Larry to stay with the dude at the crib while we crept through CI, hunting for his other partner in crime. Buddha knew everyone, and after pushing up on a few places that he thought his partner would be, we finally returned back to the crib. We took everything brand new and some more before heading back to Marlboro. A moment like that bonds gangsters for life. I was a few years younger than Buddha was, but had the same animal inside of me. Buddha would recognize me as family after the incident and admired my gangster. So when I saw him on Rikers Island, he greeted me as such. And when he found out that C was my cousin, the rest was history. All eyes were on me, especially at the table as Buddha and Cuzzo went back and forth about how they knew me. The line kept moving, and I don't remember the COs saying anything to these two alleged killers. The housing unit they came into the mess hall with had a serious reputation. All of the boys in their housing unit had a body under their belt and was known for jumping off the line, not only on other inmates, but also on the correction officers. They also gave me recognition as I just listened to the inmates in my housing unit share stories about them. Once back in the housing unit, I felt very comfortable knowing that I had family in the building with such a reputation. I couldn't have been endorsed any better than that. But anyway, about 30 minutes after being in the housing unit, the correction officer called my name. At first I thought I was being called on the bailout, but instead he gave me 2 large brown paper bags full of goodies. Them boys dropped me off 2 bags of everything I needed to survive. Name brand soap, deodorant, plenty of food, and a carton of cigarettes, even though I didn't smoke. The wolves in the housing unit had eyes on me as I made my way back to my bed with the 2 big brown paper bags. I had enough to kill for, but no one came for it. This is the end of story 44, the Don Kawand story. Unapologetically Gangster, the Don Kawand story. Book 1, subtitle, Marlboro and Coney Island, story 45. The following morning, while heading to breakfast, this big light-skinned kid that I came to Rikers Island with on the bus and spent some time with in the reception had a black eye and was missing his sneakers. He was on the north side of the 2 Dome, so what happened to him in the middle of the night was only a mystery. I couldn't help but wonder what happened to his sharpened nail. All I could do was wonder and shake my head in disgust. And this dude was talking about holding me down, but couldn't help himself. Even though we were friendly coming in, he didn't get any rap from me this morning. I just stayed in line quietly until we got to the mess hall. And this time, while having breakfast, someone else would come into the mess hall that I recognized. It was one of my partners in crime, Universal, from Building 3. We'd done some things together. When we went out hunting, he put them to sleep while I ripped their pockets. It was good to see him, except he looked a little different. He was looking good. His face was cleared up, his waves were spinning, and the boy was chiseled after putting on some weight. And of course, just like my cousin and Buddha, he stopped and chopped it up with me. He reassured me that everyone from Marlboro and Coney Island that was on Rikers Island was good. Don't let anybody front on you, fam. Be good, you hear? His last words before moving on to get his food tray. That afternoon, right after chow, My dude Gamal would finally enter Two Dome. It was also his first time on Rikers Island as well, and it was good to see homie had caught up with me. I shared most of the food and cigarettes I had been given. I gave him half of everything that I had been given by my cousin in Buddha. And before the day was out, my name was called on the bailout, and I left him everything. Before leaving, I passed him the makeshift knife for protection, although I knew he was going to be good. I hated to leave my dude, but knew that he would be okay. There was nothing soft about him at all. I would return to Marlboro Projects with an extra stripe under my belt as a gangster, although I lost the will to smile. It was something about that night in Rikers Island that drained the little bit of joy that was left inside my troubled soul. But once back in the hood, my life of crime would continue until my next visit to Rikers Island for a much more serious case, one that would have my victim on life support, struggling to breathe and fighting for their life. This is the end of Story 45, the Don Kawand story. Now make sure you subscribe, click like, and share, because somebody needs to hear this.